Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. Welcome to another series in our webinar series. This one's work from home troubleshooting. I'm warning you, this is going to be short, and I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, but these are just the sort of things you need to troubleshoot with your end users if they're having problems. So last week we covered security. The week before that we covered a little bit of troubleshooting. This week it's going to be all about how to set it up, and this week's going to be about troubleshooting. So a couple housekeeping items. Go ahead and post any kind of questions you have in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. These are social medias. Go ahead and follow these. And it looks like I have an error on the blog there. I'll fix that later. But all these get posted to YouTube within usually 1 to 2 business days. Traditionally the same day, but you know how those things go. So if you want to check out any of the other ones, go to youtube.com/techiegurus, and you can watch any of the webinars that we've done. All right, so the goals for the day. I want to help provide some additional tips on working from home. I know this is something that's not going to stop anytime soon. I saw in the news this morning that Ford is going to be pushing their salaried workers back until at least January, and GM still hasn't made a decision. Chrysler has no idea. So this is the world we live in right now. So work from home is important. It's going to continue on for the foreseeable future for a lot of companies. So I want to make sure that we just kind of cover this and make sure that we're doing everything we can to make it as seamless as possible. And with the number of people that had to work from home suddenly, there's been a lot of issues that have come up and a lot of things that we want to talk about. So these topics are serious. I do present with some levity. I can be inappropriate. I usually keep that in check on webinars, but if you know me, you'll know that probably changes a little bit. We will be emailing reminders. We can email PDFs. If you like a copy of the slides, we can share that as well. So this is what we've done so far. Next week, we're going to go over some Office 365 tools that you didn't know you had. They're adding tools all the time, so it's something that's kind of cool. So if any of these interest you, like I said, techiegurus.com/YouTube or youtube.com/techiegurus, and you can get to our channel. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about how to troubleshoot issues that maybe your employees are having when working from home. Sometimes it's computer problems. Sometimes it just is like internet problems. And sometimes it's just the fact that they're at a home network that has kids at home and things like that. And they're just doing too much on the network and it really can't handle it. And that leads to being unproductive while they're trying to work. So we talked about some security stuff last week with how we should segment things and how we should protect the business. But the reality is like, even if you do those things, there's still issues that come up. Sometimes it's really hard to troubleshoot too, because a lot of homes weren't built for working from home. Like some people don't have a dedicated office. Some people have to work from the couch or have to work from the kitchen table. They're going to have to use their home wireless, which historically home wireless isn't as good as business wireless. So you have issues where maybe they're in the wrong part of the house and they can't connect to the wireless internet properly, or it's just slow, it's cutting out, and they're having problems opening and modifying files. So what we want to try to do at a high level is cover like some of the troubleshooting you can go through. And if you have additional questions or if you have anything that you need help with, we're here to help. It's just something that I don't want to get too deep in this because I don't want to make this completely and utterly boring for everybody and then lose everybody. So let's do takeaway. Let's talk about takeaway number one. We need to do a little heads up research about how everybody's set up at home. If you had to send your office workers home, you know, do they have cable at home? Do they have good internet? We have some customers that, quite frankly, sent people home and they had not quite dial-up, but like really slow internet, and they were trying to open files and things across like a VPN, and it was so slow that they actually couldn't work. So we had to come up with a different solution for that. So this is a diagram of kind of showing like how a home user will connect. Usually it'll be a VPN, or they'll remote into maybe a PC on site through the firewall back into your network so they can do work. Again, data can be anywhere. It could be in the cloud if you have Office 365, or if you use Google, or even if you use any kind of software as a service application. It could be QuickBooks Online. It could be Salesforce, whatever. They can be anywhere. The internet connection is the most important part here. So if the internet connection isn't good, it's just going to make everything look like it's the problem with the business, or it's a problem with the website, or things like that. So it's kind of hard to troubleshoot, again, remotely, but it's something that we need to think about. So let's go over what we can talk about. So internet connection speed. Two choices are always wired and wireless. Wired is always better, just because wired gives you guaranteed speed versus wireless, which can vary, quite frankly, a lot. I mean, wireless is something where if you run like a microwave and you're on the wrong signal, it can actually interfere with it. Like a home phone, a cordless home phone can interfere with wireless. It depends if it's there's two different frequencies you can run on. You can run 2.4 or 5. 5 doesn't have the same problems, but a lot of people don't have 5. In 5 gigahertz, the problem with it is range. So 2.4 is common, but 2.4 gigahertz is also the one that has the most interference. And it can be literally anything that has an electronic signal that can cause it. So what we found is people would have to work in basements, and maybe they have Comcast at their house and they're using Comcast wireless for their wireless, and they're sitting in the basement and they're at the fringe of like where they can actually get wireless, like the absolute fringe. Like it's actually phenomenal. They can even get on the internet. And what the problem with that is like, again, we go back to what we talked about. They can't open websites correctly. They try to open files and they just fail. Like maybe they get the file and they start getting errors and they get frustrated and they say, I can't work like this and things like that. And unfortunately, when people are working from home, they didn't plan for this, right? So maybe they're not used to working in the basement. So they may have to invest in some home equipment. And this may be something where you actually talk about, maybe we need to have like a geek squad or somebody go out to people's houses or talk to a provider and say, you know what, is there anything you can recommend for somebody's home so that we can kind of improve this? The second one is just internet speed in general. One thing that you find, and this goes back to work from home or the office, cable connections are really fast one way. So when you download things, but they're not very fast when you send things. So upload. A good example is when you're at the office and you browse the internet, you might be able to download at a gigabit or 500 megs per second or 100. But when you go to send a file, so let's say you want to send something to Dropbox or OneDrive or something like that, or even email, you may only be able to send it 10 megabits per second or 5 megabits per second, which is incredibly slow in comparison. So what we found is companies that had to send a bunch of people home and then connect back in, they're seeing the limitations of a cable connection. They're seeing that, hey, 10 megabits per second isn't enough. When you have 10, 15 people trying to pull files, it's not enough. And the problem with cable is it only goes so fast. Comcast and even Wide Open West or WOW, they only offer so much upload speed. So if this is a long-term thing, one thing you might want to think about at your office is looking to get a fiber connection. They're more expensive, but they also bring on things like SLAs, so like 99% uptime, and you'll get symmetrical speeds. And by that, what I mean is when you download things or you send things, it's the same speed, and it can be high speed, but it does cost more. But with what we're looking at, if we are going to reduce our footprint, maybe we're thinking about downsizing buildings or something like that, you can shift those costs over to the internet to provide better service. So, or if you leverage more cloud services, you don't have that same problem because they have faster internet. So that's a key. Disk space. If you're allowing users to maybe sync Dropbox or OneDrive or SharePoint, they may run out of disk space. Their home computer may not be enough. And if you should have given them some sort of work machine, but again, we understand that that's not always the case. If they don't have enough space, that can cause problems as well. Multiple screens, not everybody can work from a laptop. When you're in the office, most people have either one big monitor or two monitors. So, when they go home, they'd like to have that same experience. And unfortunately, not everybody at home has that experience. This might be something where you have to work with your employees on figuring out how do we add 2 screens at home, cost effectively, of course. I left Task Manager in here because it's kind of important. When you're dealing with like an IT provider, a lot of times they can remote in. We can remote in and we can help if an application isn't working. But when you don't, or you maybe don't want to pay for that, or you haven't paid for that, or you haven't figured out how to do that, Task Manager is really simple. You can hit Control-Alt-Delete on your keyboard and click on Task Manager, or if you right-click on the taskbar at the bottom where applications show up, just in some blank spot, you can right click on there and show task manager. And what they can do is you can end applications. And by end applications, I mean close them. So if they're not responding, let's say Outlook is a common one. Sometimes you have it added an add-on into Outlook and it just stops responding. Well, what do? Right? So you're going to have to go to Task Manager and you have to click on it. And you just have to click on the application and click on End Task. I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's something we have to think about. Patching is another thing. We talked about security last week, but if you're letting people use their home machines, you don't know if they're patched. You don't know if they have exploits on their machines. So it's something that you have to think about from a troubleshooting perspective. So if the desktop or laptop that they own or that is owned by the company is sent home with them, then they can go through and they can actually make sure that an IT provider or whatever is patching it so that things are staying secure. And printing is another big one. Do you need to print back to your office? That's a big one for a lot of people because maybe you don't want people printing at home. Maybe you want people to be able to print at the office. And that's a big troubleshooting issue because of the speeds across the internet. Even with a VPN, printing becomes a very big problem. So if you want to print a big print job, I mean, one, if it's big enough and somebody prints it from home, it could basically, I don't want to say kill their internet speed, but it could get it to a point where it's unusable until the print job is done. And when you're at the office, print job might take, 10 seconds. When you're at home, the same print job might take 4 minutes just because of the difference in speeds. So some things we have to think about. So this goes back to the internet connection. This is exactly what I was talking about before. So one of the troubleshooting steps that we need to take is really, if somebody says, hey, look, I'm having a problem, and you can say, okay, can you get to a website? Can you go to Google? Can you go to ESPN? Can you go to Microsoft.com or something like that, or Office.com? And if they can't, one thing we want to do is say, okay, do you have another computer in your house? Can you actually get to the internet from there? So by doing that, we're trying to say, okay, is it the device or is it their actual internet connection? Now, if they go to another computer and it works, then we know it's the device. So a good step there would be, okay, let's reboot that computer, right? Something's wrong with it. Maybe the wireless connection is broken and it's not connecting. So, or if it's wired, maybe something's wrong. So just go ahead and reboot it. If they go to the other computer and it doesn't work, then what we need to think about is, okay, now we have two computers that don't work. So it's probably the ISPs and the internet service provider. So for Comcast or WoW or something like that, or even AT&T, if you have AT&T Uverse, you can just go unplug the modem that they provide you. Usually it'll say like Aris, and I'll have a screen for that, or it'll say Comcast on it or something like that. You just unplug the power for 10 seconds, plug it back in, let it come completely back online. Usually there's 3 lights in the front of it that need to go solid before it works, and then try it again. And if everything works there, great. And if it doesn't work there, that's when we have to have somebody call the internet service provider. So call Comcast, call WoW, and call AT&T and troubleshoot that effectively. So this is an example of internet devices. Aris is a common one for cable. So if you're Comcast or WoW, WoW gives you Aris directly. Comcast usually renames theirs. It might say Cisco on it. It might say just Comcast on it. AT&T usually says AT&T Uverse on it or something along those lines. They usually stand vertical now, just like these. So they're not, but there are older versions that do lay flat, like horizontal. So it's something to think about. The one thing for cable modem is pretty easy to see is, hey, is there a thick coax cable that you would normally plug into a TV for cable TV plugged in the back of it? And if there is, that's what you need to reboot. So next thing, speed. So this is a good example. If you go to speedtest.net, let's see somebody saying, I can't open files, I'm having really bad problems, things like that. So you say, okay, let's go to speedtest.net. So you go there, don't click any ads, just click go. And you get the results. So if you look at these results, a 326 millisecond ping is actually really bad. A typical cable connection should be someplace between 20 and 40 milliseconds. If the connection is being maxed out, and what I mean by that is if somebody's downloading too much stuff or uploading too much stuff, it will spike to that 300. And if that's the case, then that's going to cause very bad performance issues. Or it could just be a problem with the connection in general, in which case you have to call Comcast or call WoW or call AT&T to fix it. So if you look at this one, the download speed is only 2 megabits per second. That's really slow. But the upload speed is 67 now. This picture is a good example of a connection you probably won't have at your house because 67 megabits is really high, and there's no provider in this area that can do that except for if you have AT&T U-verse fiber at your house, then you get much higher than that. But for like Comcast or Wide Open West or WOW, you'll probably top out at 10 to 15 megabits per second. If you pay for their higher end packages, maybe 40. So take that in consideration. But when you see 2 megabits per second download, that's bad. That means they can barely do anything. And if they have anybody on the on network, like their kids, or they have a smart TV that's streaming like Netflix or something like that, then that's going to affect their speeds, and then they're not going to be able to effectively work at home. So if they do see this, what I would do is, one, you can check a different server. You can click the change server and just see if it's a server you're trying to test against. But the other is to make that call to the provider and say, hey, look, I'm not getting the speeds I need to. Can you at least look at this for me? And they can usually check, is the service working properly? And a lot of times they can even reboot the modem if they need to. So that's always good as well if you don't feel comfortable unplugging things. So let's talk about takeaway 2. I covered a lot of stuff here. You want to make sure that their internet speed is good. If they're on something called DSL from AT&T, it's going to be really slow. It's going to probably be like 1 or 2 megabits per second. And that is just way too slow in the modern world to actually work. And if that's the case, one of your better options would be to get a hotspot from like AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile if that's your provider or your cell phone provider, and actually use that to connect back in. It's going to be much faster, probably lower latency, and you're going to get a much better work experience. Again, the connection is critical. So if wireless isn't working for the person, they really need to plug an Ethernet cable in and plug directly in and see if that works as well. And I did cover Task Manager shortly. It's just a way to end applications aren't behaving properly. So if they crash or whatever and they're hung up on the screen, the other option is just to reboot, and that'll do the same thing. Multiple screens. Again, a lot of people in the office are used to 2 screens. So, if they're used to 2 screens in the office, you should probably think about having 2 screens at their house. And then make sure that everybody has their ISP contact information. Whenever you call a provider, you need to have your account number, your home address, your phone number that's on file. You may, for some, need the last 4 digits of your social security number or your driver's license for home users. So a lot of times a provider can't, like an IT company can't call in that case, because those things aren't something that, one, should be shared with an IT provider, or something that the user won't feel comfortable either. When it's a business connection, normally they just want the account number, the address, and the phone number on file. So that's something like we could call for our customers. We can call and actually open up a ticket or whatnot when it's for the business. For home users, again, they're going to have to call. So we've done this offer a lot, but really schedule a meeting with me. If you have any questions, if you're having problems with trying just to manage home users and things like that, maybe there's some things that we can offer to you that you can schedule a meeting with me, and we can just talk through it and say, hey, and I can give you some advice on whether we can do it or if there's just a way that you can do it without having us interact with it. But either way, I'm free for a 30-minute consultation. So just give us a call and we'll talk through that. So with that, Jenna, do we have any questions?
You kind of went over the questions that we had,
Okay.
but if you could kind of like go over it again, like what would be your best at home, like tips for equipment or things to have in place, maybe from working from home? I know you had mentioned
Yeah.
like maybe have like Geek Squad come out, like what specifically would we ask like Geek
So-
Squad to do?
So Comcast and WOW right now are kind of overhauling their wireless that they do at their houses. If you haven't had an overhaul done, one thing you can do is call them and request that they maybe give you a different modem that can give you better wireless connection speeds. I know Wide Open West or WOW, they'll actually install some wireless for you. I think they use, I forgot what brand they use, but they'll actually come out and do that. But they only do that, I think, with their high-end package, like their gigabit speed. So it may not be worth it. But realistically, for home users, usually like a Geek Squad or some local computer shop or something like that that's built for just like consumers, they can give you really good advice on what to buy and then how to maybe expand the wireless inside your house. Typically for us, we don't go to home users. We stick with business. But even if you wanted a suggestion on what you could buy, we can provide some suggestions on, hey, look, go buy this, and this will improve like your wireless connection speeds. As far as setup, if they don't have an office, it's gonna be really tough for how they work. Maybe they need 2 monitors. I mean, they're gonna have to have a space in their house that they can put like a small desk at least. And again, if it comes back to a decision too in the business. Do you want to pay for that, or do you maybe offer a stipend to your employees for that, so that they can go out and actually buy that so that they can work from home? Because again, we don't know when this is going to end, so we don't. But and the flip side, you don't want to spend a bunch of money if they're going to be back in the office in a month. So it's kind of business to business, determining what's best for the business and how long it's going to be. Did I answer that? Was there more to it?
No, that I think that covered everything.
Okay. All right. So again, if you have questions, we're available. You can email us, you can call us. You can message, you can put a comment on one of our videos, like them. If you want to hit us up on Facebook or LinkedIn, we might be a little slow to respond there. We're trying to get better at that, but yeah, we're here. Pick up the phone, call us, and we can help you out. Schedule a 30-minute consultation with me. So this went longer than I thought. So I hope this was really good advice for everybody, and we look forward to speaking with you next week. So hope everybody has a good rest of the week and a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.